I woke up in the morning with a sore neck and an angry heart. I'd like to tell you that I'm in pain because of some heroic act of bravery.
But that didn't happen.
I'm in pain from a minor injury that happened years ago that was the beginning of reoccurring neck issues ever since. But I'm angry because I had blame towards others for this pain. As I laid there feeling justified for my anger, these aggravating words came to my mind. You have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. After being aggravated at Jesus for speaking these words, I then felt humiliated that after so many years, I still didn't fully get these words. How can Jesus put anger and murder on the same level? It's especially annoying when I feel justified for my anger. But in this moment, after asking God for serious help, it became so incredibly clear that the source of my anger was simply because I hadn't truly forgiven. It's pretty humbling to catch myself in that type of anger after having known about forgiveness for so long, for being professing to follow Jesus for so long. And at the same time, I have a friend, Jeff, who's gone through a life-altering event at the hands of another, and yet doesn't have anger and has complete forgiveness. It's amazing. And so I decided to visit Jeff and go ask him, because somebody who has forgiveness at that level, I feel like there's something we can really learn. So I want to take you along with me, and we're gonna dive into this. So some of you might be saying that anger is a valid human emotion and it's impossible to avoid it. And I would definitely agree with that. Anger is valid. So why does Jesus put anger and murder on the same level in Matthew chapter 5? It seems almost hypocritical because Jesus himself even got angry. So Mark chapter 3 actually addresses how Jesus was angry with the Pharisees, which are the religious leaders of the day. There was a man with a withered hand, which probably means it was atrophied. It wasn't being used, so it atrophied. And Jesus was angry at the Pharisees because they were questioning on whether or not it was good to heal on the Sabbath. He was angry because their religion was getting in the way of loving this man. What did he do? He actually turned around and he healed the man. Which is he did something good. In our culture, the way we either deal with anger is we either suppress it or we act out in rage or something. We do, if it was the Pharisees, we'd have like a MMA SmackDown style rage on the Pharisees. I don't know if that's the best example, or we'd go back, kind of suppress the anger and then go back and start a anti-Pharisee blog group or something. And that's completely different than what Jesus did, which is he's mad at the Pharisees, but then he does the right thing. He does what's good. So I think the key here is to see anger as a call to action, to do something about it, right? To me, a good example would be, if somebody is getting bullied, or there's a child getting abused, or somebody being robbed, that anger is like, oh, I'm gonna do something about that, And then, so you take action. And then when you take action, that anger doesn't need to be there anymore. If you still have anger, it's still a call to action. Like if that anger resides, it's still a call to action, but that action now is to forgive. It's an action that you take in the heart. And then the other thing is that I think a lot of times our anger is misdirected because of pride or misdirected thoughts about somebody. A lot of times we demonize people that we're angry at, or we demonize people that believe differently than we do, and we get angry about it. We make it bigger than what it really needs to be, or we're focusing on the wrong thing. And so a really good example of this is one time when I was in Cambodia, I was helping a bit with the human trafficking issue over there, and there's a ton of brothels in Cambodia, and brothels are known for being part of the whole trafficking world, and it's horrendous. And I had so much anger at all these brothels, and they were allowed to be there in Cambodia. So there was one time though that we went into a brothel And I was able to speak with the brothel owner, and we actually sat down at the table and had a conversation with the translator across the table, and we talked for a while. And you know what I found out? That this brothel owner was actually a previously trafficked girl. And she was raised up in the whole trafficking world, and it became normal to her. And she actually started making money at it, and she had kids, and she was able to support her kids through it. And this became her security now. So what was once a terrible, terrible thing now became her security, and to the point where she ended up buying a building and opening up her own brothel. And at that point, my anger was completely decimated. I had so much anger at brothel owners, and instead I should have had anger at the whole world of pain and hurt and that cyclical thing that happens. And my anger should have been like, what can I do that is good, that I can come in between that circle of pain, that circle of sin, and I can stop that. You know, what can we do that is good? And I hope that makes sense for you guys. I think a lot of times our anger is misdirected, and really I had to have forgiveness on that brothel owner. I had to forgive her, because if I didn't, my anger would have still been directed at her, and I would have been missing it completely, right? I think it's so key to have these right mindsets and to be able to see people as God sees them, you know? Another thing is that, you know, when we get angry at people, we see them in that moment, right then, in how they've offended us, right? But to be able to see people and to even imagine how they are, even if they hurt you purposefully, even imagine how they were as children. You know, what kind of life did they have? And them as children, you know, they had needs. They had a need for love and a need for care and someone to encourage them. And maybe they never got that, right? So I think the posture of our own heart is really key to the beginning of forgiveness. So I've had all this on my heart and in my mind and things that I've learned over the years, but I'm still learning. So I think we're gonna learn something from Jeff. So we're gonna go to Jeff's interview now, and I'm gonna put the full interview also on the channel that you guys can watch, because it's really amazing. It's about forgiveness, but it's also about so much other stuff. But for now, we're just gonna show some clips of that pertain to the forgiveness and the heart that he has there. It's really good, so let's watch that. This is Jeff. When I first met Jeff, he was not in a power chair. He's my friend and a very likable man. He's passionate about his community, family, health, and also he's an amazing athlete, as well as a fellow farmer passionate about land stewardship. About 1 year ago, while Jeff was driving with his children, he was struck by a drunk driver in a car accident. And I'll let him tell the rest of the story.
Announced to us, somebody clipped the back of the truck, and she was over the legal limit of alcohol, and so her maybe cognition was impaired, maybe she wasn't paying attention, but it was something that, you know, we were hit by a drunk driver. So we rolled the pickup, and when it came to a stop, you know, there were injuries. The injuries to the children were zero. You know, the miracles that had already started to unfold at that point, you know, are beyond understanding. And then for myself, I had an injury of C5 through 7, which is on my spine, and it resulted in some paralysis, and that's been about a year now. Life flighted to Springfield, spent a month in Springfield, and then 5 months at Craig Hospital in Colorado, and then made the journey home. And the journey home is still a journey every day, just like everybody else. Now, which is some different. You can be presented things and see it as an obstacle or see it as an opportunity. Life as now a stay-at-home dad and farmer have their own opportunities for growth. You know, at the C5 level, obviously I'm in a power chair. I have limited hand movement. Can luckily move both of my arms well enough to give my loved ones hugs, which is something that I was really praying for in the ICU. as far as her and what that entails. You know, she didn't have any intentions to hurt anybody, but there were choices made that maybe made it harder to not hurt somebody. Even at the very beginning, Rachel and I did not have anger towards an accident. You know, leading into how to not be angry when things come at us as an opportunity or an obstacle. So the opportunity there to not have anger or to not have blame on our hearts or on our minds has not been something that she and I have struggled with. It's not that we don't have hard days, but the feeling of anger was never something that we've struggled with. And I think it was because we both know that, for myself, and I shouldn't speak for Rachel because she has a different perspective, but I mean, I know her well enough to know some of what she's thinking. But for me, it was like, you know, somebody making a mistake. I also have made lots of mistakes, and we all continue to have unintended consequences of decisions that we make, you know, and it's something that I have always carried with me through my, you know, through faith or through things that have been shown to prove righteous in ways that there's no way to deny that forgiveness isn't healthy for everyone. She made a mistake. Sometimes our mistakes have consequences to other people who we really don't even know and understand. You know, I've never really even met her. We've seen her on a teleprompt in a courtroom. I haven't had the opportunity yet to give her a hug or to build a relationship, to tell her that, you know, I'm not, I'm not angry, and that, you know, it is something that I think we will pursue in the future. You know, it's something that I definitely would like to do, but she is still in the legal system in ways that, it's not easy to access.
That's amazing that you're actually wanting that, to pursue a hug even, and to let her know that. Something just maybe I could share as from my standpoint, I was able to visit you one time when you were in the ICU. At that point, there was a lot of kind of some anger, like, because it was all new.
Sure.
Not from you, but there's other people. And so the next time when you were out of ICU and the next time I was coming to visit you on the way in, I just felt prompted by God to ask you about how you felt about forgiveness, which for me at the time, it wasn't something easy to say, because I felt like, man, that is such a hard question when I'm not the one in your shoes. You know, like, how do you present that to someone? But I was like, well, as a friend, you know, I knew you enough to know that you're not easily offended or,
Sure.
you know, those kinds of things. So I just felt, you know, I think Jeff would appreciate that. So when I asked you there in the hospital, I don't know if you remember that, but asked you about forgiveness, and you didn't even bat an eye. You were like, oh yeah, we did that already. We've dealt with that already. We forgave her. And I was just so surprised and relieved and thankful, just a flood of emotions, even for me, you know, and the fact that you would recognize that so early on is something important to do.
Yeah.
You know, and then to hear you now, it's like permeating out of you that, you know, it's important to your growth, but also it's important to this lady's growth, to the offender's growth, whoever that might be in any case. You know, it's like if we're not walking in that forgiveness, it's almost not allowing the other person to grow in the right way too, in a sense, you know. So
Yeah, you're holding them back.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
even if you don't get the chance to ever talk to them about it, you know. Yeah, early on, it was just, it wasn't even really a question. And not that the question wasn't valid, because a lot of people would be very angry. Or a lot of people are very angry when things happen to them that it is at because their cost from somebody else's choices. You know, it makes us frustrated. To be mad at somebody for a mistake, it's not something that I want to hold on my heart. and I don't want them to hold it on their heart either.
Were you ever asked for forgiveness? I think sometimes a misconception for a lot of people is like, oh, I have to wait till somebody asks me for forgiveness before I can forgive them.
Yeah, okay, so I see where you're going with that question. Yeah, for me personally, I tell her a lot of times in my prayers that, hey, because I want to continue that feeling of non-judgmental, no blame, no like, so for me to cultivate that kind of awareness on my heart, I think it's a practice, right? Like, so forgiveness being a practice of like, at nighttime, forgive our trespasses, forgive those who trespassed against us. So it's like that prayer, the Lord's Prayer of constantly forgiving those, even if they don't even know that number one, they've hurt me, or that number two, that they need forgiveness. Like, it's just a good practice to do, and I would like others to do it for me. Those are the things that I bring up in my mind when something happens to me, of a reminder of like, oh, they might not even, this might be something that people don't even realize. If that is the case, like, I'm not judgmental on, like, I don't want to be judgmental on that either. Like, if that's how she truly feels, or if that's how anybody feels of something, like, I'm not like casting that first stone scenario. That was the one that came to my mind when I was asked, are you mad? It's like, no. Like, I'm mad at this person for what they've done to you. It's like, well, actually, something happened to me. Things happen to us every day. To be mad at life, I guess that's ultimately maybe how I would think of it, is like, if I'm mad, I would just be mad at like the opportunities of life. And I think there's so many more opportunities to be joyous and thankful of life.
Something I heard you say several times is that you verbally be thankful, or you verbally, forgive. Why do you do that?
Oh, I say it out loud?
Yeah.
I think it makes it like, announces it. It makes it real. Like, I think that there are multiple reasons why to present something out loud. You have it in your heart, or on your heart maybe, right? But then to speak those words, it's like it brings it out of the vessel, and like presents that opportunity to be received. Like, so that's kind of, when we say a prayer, saying it in your mind, I think, is very powerful. But when you speak it out loud, it not is only on your heart, but then it's presented outwardly. That's why, because it gives opportunity then to trickle away and be received by, by other things other than what's internally in my heart, or on my heart.
That's good.
And then you get to hear it too. It also gives opportunity to like critically think about it. And that was more intuitively, like, for me to say that and to speak it out loud. I mean, it is something that I do, but it wasn't like something that what I was taught. It was just like, it seemed right. There's lots of good reasons maybe to say things out loud, hold you accountable. Because you want to be, right? And I think, that forgiveness piece, I think forgiving somebody or something, or or forgiving yourself one time, like, I really believe it is a practice. Like, so to do it once, especially for something that is long lasting. So like, to forget, like, every hard moment that I have, for like, to me to think of the person or the situation, like, and to speak forgiveness constantly, is like reaffirming that's on your heart, right? Like, every time, oh yeah, I had a hard day, or had a hard moment of this new physical journey, and then to speak forgiveness every night with your prayers or whatever, for yourself and for others, and I think it keeps it written on your heart.
keeps it written on your heart. That's so good. That is so good. There's always that opportunity to pick up bitterness back again, right? When you have a hard time.
Yeah,
Right?
I think you have to, it's a practice to like stay on that state of mind. And not that you don't ever slip, you know, and like have a day where you're really angry at those, or really having a hard day forgiving yourself or what, like, but, you know, if you can practice it.
Thank you just for your heart, for who you are, for
Likewise.
being a friend.
Yeah, oh man. That's what it's about, to encourage each other, you know. Encourage you to be the best you, and you do the same for me, and that's what will make heaven on earth, right? Like, that's the point. If we can manage it.
We can manage it.
On earth as it is in heaven.
It is something to pursue for sure. Yeah. Dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, love you too. Thank you.
So there it was. I picked up from that interview something so precious and so good. And I don't know if you guys picked it up, but for me, it was so important to make a commitment to speak out forgiveness. For some reason, I just thought that, you know, having the idea of forgiveness or having the mindset or even the thought of forgiveness was enough. But what I'm realizing is that I haven't really been speaking it out that much. And even God says we have life and death in the power of the tongue. But I just didn't apply it to forgiveness, you know? And so it was such a good time with Jeff to really let that sink deep into my heart. And speaking it out is more than just going through emotion and saying 3 magic words, I forgive you. Even though that's good, you can say that, but it's also really good to be specific. You know, what is the offense? And say like, hey, I don't hold you to this. I forgive you of this thing, or I don't hold this as a record of offense between us, you know? And to be specific and to really let it come from the heart. That interview with Jeff was about over a week ago. And from that point till now, the speaking out forgiveness and practicing that more and committing to that has ministered to my own soul, like just so much. I feel so much more free, so much more alive. It's absolutely amazing. And I can't believe that, you know, something so simple would have such a drastic effect on me. But I want more of that. I want to commit to more, and I want to build this into a habit. And it actually takes a while to build a habit, so I have to keep that and remind myself, keep that at the forefront of my mind and my thoughts, and write it down and put it on a board in my room, you know, and all these different things to remind myself, speak this out, speak out forgiveness daily. Well, obviously there's got to be an offense there, but we have a world of offenses, you know, so there's all kinds of opportunities to speak it out. I choose to forgive